So maybe you've actually seen these beautiful blue and white tiles, or maybe you have heard of mole poblano, or maybe you've actually heard about the famous battle to which we can accredit why some people celebrate Cinco de Mayo. Which, quick note, Cinco de Mayo is not Mexico's Independence Day. It actually celebrates the Battle of Puebla, when Mexican forces defeated the French. And if you're here, you're probably not here for a history lesson, but rather to know what is one of Mexico's best places to live. Well, let me introduce you to a special city in Mexico called Puebla. It's one of Mexico's biggest cities. It's got a ton of history, it's a UNESCO World Heritage City, and in today's video, I want to show you what living here would actually be like. Now, if you've been searching for a Central Highland city that doesn't get too hot year-round, it has good food, that has, a lot of really good amenities, it's got good infrastructure, it isn't too expensive, it's definitely not extremely touristy, it has good hospitals, an international airport, well, it ticks off a lot of boxes. So let us introduce you to Puebla, which is a modern, thriving city in the Central Highlands of Mexico. It's the kind of city that has world-class restaurants, diverse and elegant neighborhoods, and a quality of life that rivals any major city in North America, but for a fraction of the cost. Hello everyone! Welcome back to Mexico Relocation Guide. My name is Mariana, and by the end of this video, you'll have a really good understanding of not only Puebla's best neighborhoods, but I'll show you some current rental examples. You'll understand what the cost of living is like, some averages, and a lot more. And because Puebla is not perfect by any means, don't worry, I'm also going to cover some of the cons of living here. So what do you say? Comencemos. Now, Puebla's official name is Puebla de Zaragoza, but anyone in Mexico will just refer to it as Puebla. It's Mexico's fourth largest city and the capital of the state of Puebla. It sits at a high altitude at over 7,000 feet above sea level and has some pretty nice temperate weather year-round. Now, the warmest month is generally around May, with daytime temperatures averaging around 80 degrees Fahrenheit. On the contrary, the coolest month is usually January, where daytime temperatures are going to average about 65 to 70 degrees, but are usually followed with very sunny days. Now, the rainy season runs usually from June through October, and while you do get some overcast days for weeks, it helps to cool everything down and help get that fresh air. So what is the vibe like in Puebla? Well, right away you notice how big and beautiful the city feels. This isn't a small sleepy town by any means, and it also doesn't feel like Mexico City, where you hear a lot of English being spoken or retailers catering to a lot of foreigners or tourism, and it's also not as chaotic. Now, Puebla is a large city. It has, a lot of things, and it takes pride in its rich Mexican history and culture. And even though you don't need to be fluent from day one to live here, in daily life, knowing some basic Spanish will go a long way. If you've been wanting to practice your Español, Puebla is a great city for you to really dive in. Now, as you walk through the historic center, you can feel the past all around you. In the old churches, colorful buildings, and stone streets. Puebla is a very traditional city, and that's actually a big part of what makes it so charming and so special to live here. Now, just because it's traditional doesn't mean it's old-fashioned. Yes, there are historic buildings, but you'll also find modern comforts and everything that you would expect from a big city. Now, Puebla is also home to major universities and lots of big companies, which gives it a young, energetic, and modern feel of people who are just prospering and growing with the city itself. You'll find things like art galleries, coffee shops, amazing restaurants, good neighborhoods, and really, really nice people. But you'll also find that it's very traditional and that it has a lot of events and cultural things, museums, historic sites, and those kinds of things for you history buffs. So if you are thinking of a place where you can find a lot of good, rich history, a lot of depth, I think Puebla could be the place for you. Now, before we get started into what neighborhoods you might want to look into, let me know in the comments at what stage of moving to Mexico you're in. Are you still in the dreaming phase? Like, are you still thinking of maybe not only Mexico, but other countries? Are you starting your research on actually moving to Mexico? Have you already started your residency visa process? Or are you already living here? I would love to know. So let me know in the comments down below. Okay, now let's get into some neighborhoods. Now first, let's go south of Puebla's main square, which is known as the Zócalo, to a neighborhood called El Carmen. This area is great if you want to be close to all the history and beauty of downtown, but without all the tourist crowds. It's more peaceful and feels like a real neighborhood where people live and work. When you walk around El Carmen, it feels like the Puebla you imagine in photos or that you might have seen online. The streets are filled with colorful old homes, small parks, and quiet, small roads. The homes here are what you would expect in an older, historic type of neighborhood. It has large apartments and old colonial buildings, many with high ceilings and pretty courtyards inside. Now, to give you an idea of what you can expect to pay for rentals, a remodeled 1 or 2 bedroom apartment here will cost anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000 a month. Now, depending on the exchange rate, that's about $500 to about $800 a month. A larger 3-bedroom or part of a grand colonial home will cost around 18,000 to 25,000 pesos a month. And that'll be around $950 to about $1,350 US dollars. Now, one thing to keep in mind, these buildings here are older. While many are updated nicely, they might not have the things that you need, like elevators or private parking. So think about what matters most to you when picking a place, and certainly at what floor it is and if you can make the hike on a regular basis. Now, if you like quieter, greener places, our next stop is La Paz. This neighborhood has tree-lined streets, beautiful parks, and it's home to some of Puebla's best restaurants. It's very peaceful, it feels a bit more upscale, but it's still close to everything. La Paz sits on a hill just northwest of the city center, and it feels calm and very well kept, with wider streets, nice homes, and lots of green spaces. It's a favorite for local professionals and families, and if you love food, this place is definitely known for restaurants and cozy cafes. Now, to give you an idea of the rental prices in La Paz, a large 2-bedroom apartment will cost between 14,000 to 22,000 pesos per month. That's around 750 to about 1,200 US dollars a month. A nicer, fancier 3-bedroom or penthouse will cost about 25,000 to 35,000 pesos per month. That's about 1,350 to about 1,900 US dollars a month. Now, living in this neighborhood of La Paz means enjoying a calm and stylish lifestyle. You can walk to cafes and parks, but since it is hilly and a bit further from downtown, having a car here can be helpful. If you don't mind walking on hills or you don't mind walking at all, then you really do have a lot of things right at your doorstep. Next, let's head to Angelopolis, the modern and shiny part of Puebla. This area isn't an old neighborhood. It's more like a brand new city within the city. You'll see tall apartment buildings, big shopping malls, and neat parks all around the famous Ferris wheel called La Estrella de Puebla. Now, living here is all about convenience and comfort. You've got luxury malls like Angelopolis Lifestyle Center, you've got modern hospitals, fancy restaurants, and everything feels very new and just like a big city. It's clean, secure, and it's designed to make life easy because you have a lot of conveniences really close by. Now, to give you an idea of the rentals in Angelopolis, a modern 2-bedroom apartment can cost between 16,000 to 25,000 pesos per month. That's anywhere between 865 to about 1,350 US dollars a month. For a larger 3-bedroom or penthouse, you're looking at 28,000 pesos and up, and that's about $1,500 and up, depending on size, the amenities, how much is included, whether it's furnished, not furnished, and those kinds of things. Now, Angelopolis is perfect if you want that modern, all-in-one type of lifestyle. But it's not a place where you would walk around a lot or to be able to see old buildings and traditional charm. A car is almost certainly a must if you live here and want to explore the rest of the city at your own convenience. Now, just in case you're wondering what kinds of documents you'll need to find a rental in Mexico, check out my free rental tips email series. You'll get a couple of emails over the course of the next few weeks highlighting things like documents you need for renting in Mexico, what kinds of scams you should avoid, how to find the best rentals like a local would, what kinds of questions you should ask, and also what you should never assume, and a bit of what you need to know about owning a property in Mexico as a foreigner. The link is in the video description. Now, what about utility costs? Well, thanks to Puebla's nice weather, most people here do not need air conditioning or heating. So it's not common for rentals or houses to come with those things. And that keeps electricity bills usually very low. To give you an idea, electricity will usually cost 800 to about 1,000 pesos every 2 months. And that's about 22 to 32 US dollars per month. Now, water for a 2-person household will cost you around 300 to 500 pesos a month, or about 16 to 27 US dollars. Now, for cooking and heating water, you will use natural gas. In Mexico, we usually have what's called a cilindro, or that's a cylinder tank, or a tanque estacionario, which is a fixed tank on the side of your home, especially in newer homes. Either way, they need to be refilled, and for a 2-person household, you can expect to pay around 600 pesos, or about 30 some US dollars per refill. Now, one thing to note is that many rentals in the central highlands of Mexico, and certainly Puebla, might have some level of utilities included, such as water, internet, sometimes electricity, or maybe sometimes all of the above. But just to give you an idea, in case your rental doesn't come with any utilities, you can expect a 2-person household to pay around 60 to 120 US dollars a month for basic utilities. Now, we think that 2 people can easily live a comfortable life in Puebla with around 1,500 to 2,000 US dollars a month. This includes a nice rental, going out to eat occasionally, eating like most locals would, and living a simple life. However, there's a flip side to that, and there are also many wealthy Mexicans who spend far more than what I just quoted you monthly. Because obviously, the more you splurge, like for example, the nicer restaurants you go out to eat in, the nicer your house, the more you travel, whether you have a car or not, the more memberships you have, like to a gym or a studio and things like that. Well, all those things add up, and the higher cost of living, obviously, the higher your monthly expenses. So it all comes down to your lifestyle, but I do want to give you a realistic expectation that a couple can very easily live on $2,000 a month in Puebla. However, you can easily spend a lot more. Now, before you get your bags packed and you start thinking, okay, I can live on $2,000 a month, you will have to apply for residency first. And the requirements for residency do tend to be higher than $2,000 a month. So, I want to draw your attention to our free Mexican residency visa guide. This guide will give you a good overview of the different types of residency visas in Mexico, how to know if you qualify, what you need to watch out for, and how to get started. So go to the description in this video. Okay, now let's get into a burning question, which I know a lot of you have. Is it safe to live here? And that's because one of the most common questions I get is living in Mexico safe? So the short answer is yes. Many parts of Mexico are absolutely safe to live in, and Puebla is certainly one of them. I would never recommend a city that I wouldn't personally find livable or safe to live in. But like any big city, Puebla does have some crime, like petty crime, theft, and those kinds of things. Obviously, it all depends on what part of town you're in and what activities you're engaged in. But overall, locals and foreigners both say that they feel comfortable living here and they feel perfectly safe. Just use the same common sense that you would in any big city in any part of the world. So what about groceries? Well, one of the best parts about living in a big city like Puebla is that you've got tons of choices when it comes to groceries, no matter your budget or your lifestyle. If you like fresh, local food, then I highly encourage you to visit the mercados, which are the local markets. Almost every neighborhood has one, and they're a perfect way for you to buy local fruits, vegetables, meat, and even a nice local specialty like the famous semita at a great price. If you want the full experience, check out places like Mercado de Sabores. It's huge and packed with local flavor. Now, if you're more of a traditional supermarket shopper, don't worry, Puebla has all the big box names, including Chedraui, Soriana, La Comer, and even Walmart. You'll find these all over the city, and they're great for one-stop shopping. Now, if you need to buy things in bulk or you just prefer to buy at Costco, then you can head to Angelopolis. That's where you will find Costco, but you'll also find City Market, which is perfect if you're looking for imported items, gourmet food, organic products, or maybe even higher quality cuts of meat. And if you eat a certain way, maybe you're vegan, vegetarian, or you follow a gluten-free diet, well, Puebla is starting to catch on, and there are more and more organic shops and health food stores popping up. Plus, lots of great plant-based restaurants in some of the popular neighborhoods. To help yourself find these options, I really do recommend doing a quick Google search and definitely point you in the right direction. Now let's talk about healthcare, which is actually one of the biggest reasons that people find moving to Mexico very attractive, especially after retirement when we usually tend to use medical services a bit more often. So Puebla has excellent options, whether you need something small or something a bit more serious. For minor stuff like a sore throat or you need a prescription, just walk into any pharmacy like Farmacias del Ahorro or Farmacias Similares. You'll usually see a doctor right away for under $5 without insurance. Now, if you need a specialist, Puebla has modern medical towers called Torres Médicas, especially in the Angelopolis neighborhood. These are buildings full of doctors like dermatologists, cardiologists, and a bunch of other specialties, all in one place. Now, for surgeries or emergencies, Puebla has some of the top private hospitals in all of Mexico, including Hospital Ángeles, Hospital Mac, and Christus Muguerza. Now, these places offer great care. They have modern equipment, modern facilities. A lot of their doctors will probably speak English, and you'll experience much lower costs than the equivalent in the United States. Now, how will you get around when you live in Puebla? Well, if you live in neighborhoods like La Paz or Angelopolis and you plan to run a lot of errands, you plan to explore a lot, or you want to take day trips, walking is not going to be an option. Having a car or taking a taxi or using ride shares is really going to be the way to do it. The city is pretty spread out. Now, if you don't want to drive, no problem. Puebla has a solid public bus system called Ruta. It's kind of like a mini version of Mexico City's Metro bus. It's clean, it's safe, and it has its own dedicated lanes, which makes traffic a lot easier. You pay with a rechargeable card. Now, for short trips, walking works great in places like Centro Histórico. And in case you're wondering or you want to get from one place to the other pretty shortly, Uber and Didi are great options. They're everywhere and they're very affordable. So I highly recommend that you download both apps, Uber and Didi. Now, for those of you who really like to take your bicycle on a joyride, there are some bike lanes, but cycling here is more of a weekend thing than a daily commute option. And you really do have to watch out for cars. They're not used to watching out for you. So just, keep that in mind. In Mexico, things work differently. Now, here's a bonus. Puebla also has its own international airport. So flying in and out of the city is very easy. It can connect you to other cities across the United States and Canada, but also connect you to many cities across Mexico. So it's really great for those of you who are wanting to have family and friends visit you or vice versa. If by now you're thinking, okay, what's the catch? Puebla sounds way too good to be true. Let's keep it real. No city is perfect. And Puebla definitely has its downsides, starting with earthquakes. So yes, Puebla does get small quakes now and then. Most of them are no big deal, but if earthquakes make you nervous, it's definitely something to think about. Also, traffic, like in any big city, is kind of a problem here, especially during rush hour. So, hey, if you're retired and you don't need to commute from one place to the other, we really recommend running your tours when it's not rush hour, and you probably won't even have the pain of traffic in the city. And then, Puebla is alive and busy. So if you're dreaming of peace and quiet 24/7, some areas of town might feel a bit too loud or too hectic, especially in the Centro Histórico. Now, this one is something that doesn't come up a lot, but it's actually very problematic for people with allergies and those kinds of things, and that is the volcanic ash. Now, Puebla sits near the Popocatépetl volcano, which is an active volcano, by the way, and every once in a while it releases light ash, known as ceniza, which is just a dusty layer that you'll need to wipe off your car or your balcony. It's usually harmless, but it does affect air quality, especially for those who really suffer from asthma and other kinds of respiratory problems. Now, most people find these things completely manageable, and the people that we have talked to who live in Puebla still say that it's one of the best places to live, especially when they weigh the overall lifestyle and affordability of the city with the culinary options, the shopping options, and everything that the city has to offer. So I would love to know, which part of the city would you want to live in now that you've watched this video? Are you drawn to the colonial charm of El Carmen? Are you drawn more to La Paz? Are you looking more for the modern luxury of Angelopolis? I would love to know. Let me know in the comments. So that's our updated look at life in Puebla. If you're thinking about moving to Mexico, you don't have to do it alone. I highly recommend that you visit our website, MexicoRelocationGuide.com, to get free tips. You get a lot of resources to help you make the move with confidence. And if this video helped you out, please go ahead and give it a like. It really helps us reach more people just like you. So this is not goodbye, amigos. This is just an hasta luego. My name is Mariana. You are watching Mexico Relocation Guide, and I will see you all on our next video. Nos vemos!